Welcome to the Ben Mulroney Show. Happy Friday. It's Friday, November 7th. Buckle in, Canada, because I'm about to give you financial advice. Absolutely not. That would be a disaster. It would probably be criminal, and the stock market would crash. I would be terrible at that. However, I do have someone joining me right now who is the right person to have those conversations with. We're not going to be talking specific advice on what to invest in, but he's a man with a lot of knowledge, and I think we could all do with a little more David Chilton in our lives. Welcome to the show, sir.
Great to be on. Congratulations on how well things are going.
Thank you very much. So the Wealthy Barber you're defined by that in so many ways, right? So you wrote that book 36 years ago?
36 years ago.
Okay, 36 years ago, and you have now since re-edited, updated it, and you were telling me during the break that it took you longer to write this version than the original.
It really did. There's so many more products, but also you think about it, when I wrote the original, there was RRSPs. Now there's TFSAs, FHSAs. You don't only have to teach the reader what they are, but how do you prioritize in your circumstance, cover off the subtle nuances, make it entertaining, make it understandable. It took me 16 months full-time writing to do the follow-up book, but I'm glad it's out there. I was joking with you. I'm amazed how many people have said to me, I didn't think you'd still be alive. Like, I read that 4 decades ago. What are you still doing here?
Okay, so for those who don't know what The Wealthy Barber is, first of all, it's one of the biggest selling books in the history of this country. Like, I think it's top 5 easily. So many people have a copy of this book, but some don't. What is it?
It's a novel set in small town Ontario, Sarnia, where a barber dispenses financial advice, teaches people what they need to know while he's cutting hair over a 9-month period. So it's conversational, there's humor, there's stories, there's back and forth. The narrator of the book, one of the young patrons, starts out with no financial knowledge, no math skills, doesn't think he can do it, and you learn along with him and the other characters in the book. And for whatever reason, the formula seems to really resonate with readers.
But David, on top of sort of the world changing, and therefore you had to update it, you changed. You're 36 years older. You've had the priorities of your life, your investment priorities must have changed in this chapter of your life. Did that alter how you wrote or what you wrote?
No, but my experience certainly helped me. I'll give you an example. In the first book, I didn't give a lot of attention to spending summaries. And by the time I was 36 years older, I realized they are incredibly impactful positively, so I wove them in more aggressively. But the book is still written for that 25-year-old, 35-year-old, 41-year-old. It's written for the younger Canadian set. And, drawing down from my kids' questions, my kids' friends' questions, my friends' kids' questions, et cetera, you really kind of knew where people were going wrong, what the challenges were, and put all that into the book. And I think that's why it's flowing.
What do you say to those, if you've written this for the younger generation, if those younger Canadians would say, great, that my dad gave me the book for Christmas, but I can't afford rent, let alone paying for like investing anything into my future? How do you get past that? How do you get past the numbers?
The toughest part of writing the book was the housing affordability challenges and how they're draining a lot of people's savings, even when they get in the marketplace. Yeah. Because owning a home is so expensive, not just the mortgage. Property taxes keep going up, but greater than a CPI level. So does maintenance, so does insurance, et cetera. It's more and more difficult to save the 10 and 15%. I mean, it's sad, but one of the most important pieces of advice in personal finance is choose your parents wisely. Unfortunately, we can't all do that.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people, this has become exceptionally difficult. More people than I think I've ever seen in all the years I've been doing it. And there's no easy answers. I think you're going to see Canada be forced to, and I think this is a positive thing. How do we draw investment dollars back into the country from outside, but also from inside, so we can raise our productivity and therefore have wages rising at a faster rate than inflation? Because right now, there's just too many pinched people. No doubt about it.
There were small business owners and representatives of small, medium-sized business community who were kind of disappointed that there wasn't more for them in the budget. They said, they were hoping that, like during the Chrétien era of austerity, there would be cuts to business taxes so that they could then take that money and reinvest it in their business, and they could hire more people, wages could go up, the value of those businesses would go up, they'd do more business, and then they'd pay more taxes. And they didn't see that this time. There are some things in it for them. What's your assessment of the budget for a small business owner, but also for the individual?
Well, for the individual, not a lot changed. Yeah. There was nothing dramatic on that front.
So not generational, transformational?
No, not on that front. I think that really the budget was supposed to be about how do we invest back into Canada more through infrastructure spending, through incentivizing big company investing. But you're right, there wasn't a huge focus on the small and medium-sized business, and that tends to be the engine for growth in Canada when we turn the corner.
52% of our non-government GDP comes from small and medium-sized business. And the CFIB did a study a few weeks ago they released that said that over 70% of small business owners would not recommend to a friend to start a small business in Canada today.
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, lots of regulation here. Obviously, we deal with relatively high taxes. But I think the other reason is we've got a lot of uncertainty around the U.S. trade situation. And remember, a lot of these small businesses are serving big businesses.
Yeah.
And they're supplying them to some extent or certainly buying from them. And so we need to bring more certainty to what we're dealing with right now. And then again, if we can do that, we can slowly start raising our productivity figures because they're our biggest challenge. When you look at our productivity numbers, that's the problem. And so, we don't just need growth. We need growth in productivity so that the wage growth outstrips the inflation growth.
Okay, let's live in a world where the lives of Canadians are markedly improving. I want to be solutions oriented and I want to be positive as well. So let's get to a point now where people have optimism and they have a little bit more cash on hand. Generally speaking, what do you recommend that somebody who's starting out do with that cash if they are saddled with debt? They've been trying to stay afloat and they've been taking on debt, but they have some money. Could they invest it? Should they pay down debt? What's the recommendation there?
Paying off high interest rate debt's still hard to beat. It really is. If you've got a credit card debt of, say, 21%, you're not going to be able to invest over the long term and beat that mark. And remember, that's non-deductible interest. And so that's an after-tax return. That tends to be priority number 2. But, it's interestingly not priority number 1 for Canadians who have a group RRSP at work with matching from their employer. That tends to be priority number 1, especially since in Canada we have a lot of very generous employers doing dollar for dollar match. Drives me crazy when people don't take advantage of that. So those are 2 of the first things you can do is if you have that, take advantage of it. Certainly paying off non-deductible high interest rate debt, that has to be a focus. And then we go back to the old-fashioned basic. You've got to take 10 to 15% of your income, pay yourself first, and dedicate it toward long-term growth. The good news is with TFSAs, with RRSPs, we have containers to put those investments in that are very much tax advantage and can compound over the years quite effectively. So that's the kind of thing that the book talks about. How best to do that? What are the nuances? How do you force yourself to save more effectively? But again, it's still difficult. No doubt.
Yeah, David, I love saying you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And what you just described there is, there are some people who are leaving money on the table.
Oh, it's huge.
And it's if they just knew to do those things. I love that line. I can't remember what bank it was. You're richer than you think.
Right.
But is it worth it for everybody to find some financial advisor, even for just a one-off, to sit down and meet with somebody who can look at their books? I don't know how much it costs, but I have to believe that it would be of value, even if it was if it was an initial cost, that somebody could say, you know what, if you just change these 3 things, here's X amount of hundreds extra dollars a month that you don't have to change anything for.
It can be. I mean, the fee-only financial planning business in Canada is full of very competent people. A lot of our best trained people go there, but they are going to charge $3,000 and $4,000, and the average person starting out is not going to pay that, maybe doesn't even have it.
Yeah.
And so then they turn to the rest of the industry, which is often, not always, but product sales oriented, and sometimes get put into high-fee products. People don't love hearing this, but you have to take some responsibility yourself to learn the basics. The good news is a book like The Wealthy Barber, a lot of the YouTube videos are very well done now. We've got some great information out there. You can learn it. In fact, I know this sounds motivational and corny, but one of the most important messages, you can do this. Tricky stuff doesn't work. The good things are easily grasped. Like anybody can read The Wealthy Barber in 4 hours and go, I get that. It's not that tricky.
And that could be the beginning, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
It's the beginning. You say, you know what? I think that I've got one of those, I can avail myself of X, Y, or Z through my work.
That's right.
And then they can start doing the research themselves, and then it's a positive feedback loop.
No doubt.
What are you working on now that the book's done?
I'm 64, and so I don't think another update 36 years from now makes a lot of sense.
How about this? Promise me that when the book sells its 3rd million copy, you'll come back to the show to celebrate.
I absolutely will. I enjoyed today immensely, and it was great seeing you again.
David Chilton, thank you so much. The author of The Wealthy Barber, and just a wonderfully calm voice in a time where we need it so desperately. We appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of The Ben Mulroney Show.